Soos genoem, gesels ek vanoggend met Dr. Mamadi Theresa Sethusa en sy is die medeskrywer van 'n pragtige koffietafelboek met 'n baie ernstige tema. Doctor, welcome and thank you for joining me on Groot Plaas.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Now, writing a book can be quite a big task, and focusing on our nature, our animals. Tell me about this book. Why highlight such an important and almost dramatic topic in such a beautiful way?
Okay, thank you. You're right, firstly. Writing a book is actually a bit of a toll, but sometimes there are messaging that has to be communicated. There are stories that has to be told, particularly one like this one. So this book is a coffee table book, like you have said. It highlights 14 species that are threatened. It's just really a very small number out of all the threatened animals that we have. And we look at their history, we look at their life, their history, but most importantly, we look at the threats that they face. And information that is in this book is really available. Like, it's in your scientific literature, is in your technical reports, is in resources that in the sector we really refer to a lot. But if we are to be honest, it's not a norm for somebody who is not in the sector to pick up an academic or a technical report to read about stuff, you know. So it takes packaging the information in a palatable language. It takes packaging the information in products that people can relate to and are easy to read, despite the fact that it's conveying an important messaging. So without going that route of actually having it packaged such that it can be a popular publication, we will be missing the bulk of the people who need to actually come together to fight against biodiversity laws.
In the same way that a book is a form of education and it's a platform to spread knowledge, this is also a platform to spread knowledge. So according to you, I know the process of writing a book, and you literally, it's hours and hours of research, sitting down, writing. So if you can educate us, what do you think the public needs to know when it comes to our endangered species?
Okay, so what the public needs to know is that when you look at it, biodiversity laws as a concept, it looks big. It looks like, what can I do as an individual to make a difference? It looks like perhaps government or perhaps a well-funded organization can work and do something to change the narrative. However, just like it's highlighted in the book, on the last chapter of the book, there are simple everyday decisions that if we take them collectively, although they look minute at a personal level, but collectively, they actually contribute to changing the narrative, to changing the trajectory for the animals and for biodiversity as a whole. So there is something that you can do as an individual, and this book is aimed at closing that gap and bringing it home, bringing it to you. What can I do? Is there something that I can do?
Why did you decide to only focus on the certain animals which are in the book? I mean, like you say, there are quite a lot. Tell us a little bit about the animals, and it's probably something people might not know. Why these animals?
Okay. So animals that are threatened are many, like you have said, and we couldn't package we couldn't have all of them in one coffee table book, of course. But what we did is that we looked at, we tried to cover a broad spectrum. If you had a look at the layout of the book, we looked at large animals, we looked at small animals, we looked at, we've got a marine representation in the book. So we just went to the different large groupings and took examples that would help us convey the messaging that we need to convey. And also based on the expertise that we have in our network, where we could actually have taxon experts input into the chapters and be available to engage with the public if need be, to talk more about threatened animals, with this as just a highlight or just as a teaser, so to say.
Do you think people, and that's now the general public, do you think they actually realize the extent of the problem when it comes to South Africa's endangered species? Do you think it hits home?
I don't think it hits home. The extent of the pressures hits home, but I think to some extent there is an acknowledgement of range shifts, species range shifts. You pick this up when you have normal conversations with people, particularly older people like our parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
You know, they will say statements like, "Oh, when we were growing up, we used to see these birds all the time in this season," or there used to be so many then. Where did they go? Or they would see something that was never seen in that piece of land, and they would be like, "What is this? Where does it come from?" So at some level, there is an acknowledgement that there is shift. However, I don't think the reflection goes back to, could I or could we as a people be driving the shift? And if we are driving the shift, is there something that we can do to halt it or to reverse the story? So I think it's recognized. It doesn't hit home as it ought to. And we are hoping with this book that people will start to internalize and recognize that really in making small, simple changes in my behavioral patterns, I could actually conserve nature around me.
Absolutely. We're going to continue our chat just now. We just got a break for an advertisement. Bly gerus ingeskakel. Ek gesels steeds met Dr. Mamadi Theresa Sethusa en sy is die medeskrywer van 'n boek en 'n baie interessante boek met 'n ernstige tema. Doctor, we just discussed, why information like this is necessary in the general public. According to you, why do you think there should be more stressed about this? What does the situation in South Africa actually look like? What are some of our animals that are endangered and that might not see the future?
Okay. When you refer to the National Biodiversity Assessment of 2018, this is the state of the biodiversity report. It's released periodically. The previous one was in 2011. They report that of the 20,400 plus plants in South Africa, 14% are threatened. And of the animals, it's not all animals that are assessed, but of the animal groups that are assessed, 12% is threatened. So it's not a good picture. If you look at those stats, if you look at those numbers, it's really not a good picture. However, where there is concerted efforts, where there is intentional efforts to protect the species, we are seeing positive results. For instance, I'll take examples from the book. For the Picasgill reed frog, for the small-scale redfin, and for the Clan William sandfish. The three have biodiversity management plans where actions are tabulated. What can we do? Clearly tabulated to protect the species. And for the two fishes, actually, they are listed as endangered under Schedule 1 of the Provincial Nature Conservation Ordinance in the Western Cape, which means they can't be harvested and they can't be sold. And there are a number of projects that are run with the government, different NGOs, and even private landowners that are ensuring that they don't wipe the species off.
Yes.
And we are seeing a positive turnaround. So the picture is not pretty. However, with intentionality, there is something that can be done to change the direction at which it looks like we're going.
You mentioned there are simple things that we can do differently in our everyday life, just to try and change the narrative and try and make an impact in our immediate environment. Have you got some practical tips? I mean, what comes to mind if you can give some tips on how can I make my difference in my environment?
Okay, simple things really. In the house, what products do I use to clean my house? Are they environmentally friendly? going to work, if me and my neighbor are going in the same direction, are we all using cars creating traffic and carbon emission, or can we carpool and come together? Simple decisions like that. Our diet, what do we eat? How was it processed? What do we support? What holiday destinations do we support? And how are they doing conservation-wise? Are they prioritizing nature? Are they exploiting unsustainably? So there are little simple things like picking up a product to use in your home, and that goes a long way.
What is the conversation? Obviously, everything happens with intent. This information is being put out there, and it can be downloaded for free. What is the conversation that you would love to get started through this information that you're putting out there? Just a general way of thinking, a general way of what would you love to see?
Would love to see people talking more about the impact that we have on nature, on animals, and in a broader sense on nature or biodiversity. We would like to see behavioral change where we don't perpetuate behavior that is actually harming us. We want to conserve nature for us, for our children, for our children's children. So just that conversation. And it's good that conversations around species range shifts are there already. It's a starter. And then now reflecting, could it be our behavioral pattern? Could it be that we have altered the habitat so much that the animals can't come here no more, or can't live here no more? And what can we do? And in a small scale, in a big scale, whatever platform you have, whatever resources you have to make a difference, if you're conscious, if it starts in the mind, you're conscious about what is happening, what I can do to change it, you talk about it. And we are hoping that eventually the last step would be translating into action from the home all the way to organized efforts.
I really love the way you're thinking. We've got about a minute left. If you can quickly tell me, is there something that even surprised you while doing your research on this topic? Something that you found really interesting that people might not know?
Okay, I think we missed too much in the discipline for there to have been surprises for me, and I think that's what has driven this project. But what surprised me was the uptake, from even young kids. Like, I've got an 8-year-old, and when I brought the printed copy home for the first time, my Tato was obsessed with the beautiful images in the book. She was like, "Mommy, look at this, it's beautiful." And it created an opportunity for me to say, "Nana, this beautiful frog is in trouble. Do you know why? Do you know what can be done?" So even from a young age, as an educational tool in the home, I was surprised. As a conversation starter with your circle of friends, just putting it there on your coffee table when you're having friends and somebody flips over, the conversations that come out. So really, this is a tool that, if taken and used, it can help us to talk about the things that we ought to be talking about and to influence behavioral change in the positive direction for biodiversity.
That is absolutely amazing. Thank you for your time and your passion, and go spread the news. Good luck with all your endeavors.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.